North Melbourne, really interesting year coming up for North. So we know they've had a couple of big outs, the main one being Taron Thomas, but he hasn't played a lot of footy. Same being for the likes of Jaden Stevenson and Hugh Greenwood. All three of those guys at some point had really high hopes, on their heads in North Melbourne colours, but didn't really work out for all three of them for very different circumstances. I'm just going through the main ins and outs, by the way. You feel free to add or subtract where you please. And then they bring in Caleb Daniel, who I really like as a pickup. I think would get a game at almost all clubs.
Except the Dogs.
Except the Dogs, yeah, ironically. Jack Darling, I have no idea why they picked him up. And Luke Parker, I think, adds some grunt, adds some experience, adds some leadership. I think he's the perfect addition. Yeah. I still cannot believe 2 years after we first had this conversation that they haven't addressed their key back setup. I cannot fathom that. Like you just talked about if Curnow and Mackay, when they play against Richmond in round one. I went to the Good Friday match and the two guys playing on Curnow and Mackay were Toby Pink and was Biggie?
Biggie, I reckon, played that day, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon they were the two.
Biggie's been delisted since.
And it was boys against men.
Yeah.
It really was. And I felt bad for North because it felt like during that game they were quite competitive in the middle with the likes of what they've got. But when the ball goes down there and you've got no one to play on the big fish, very difficult to stay competitive in games.
They would argue this year with Logue back from his ACL, with Chom, Charlie Comben, and Aiden Core as a back three. That's not a bad back three if all three can stay on the park.
Yeah, but none of them have the history of staying on the park.
No, that's fair.
Core's never really been a number one defender anyway.
No, but
I
plays
thought last
the third
year
role.
did amazingly well.
He was batting out of his league last year.
Logue barely ever plays. And Comben's a project player that should be coming in as an addition.
Yeah.
He should be the cream on top. He shouldn't be part of the flour. I can't believe I just said that. I went too far with the cake analogy.
I liked it.
Thanks.
The Darling one, I know we've debated this previously. I think it's okay as a little stopgap.
I don't.
Until they find the next one.
I don't.
So it takes a little bit of the heat off Nick Larkey because last year he was battered one out a lot of times.
But he kicked, 70-odd goals the year before?
Yeah, but they won, 2 or 3 games? The Caleb Daniel one, I'm with you. I think he's best 22 at most clubs. He's a good user off half-back. The question for me is 12 months earlier went and got Zach Fisher.
Yep.
And gave him a 4-year deal from Carlton. Do they not play the same role? And I don't think you can play them together, especially if you've got McKercher rolling through there.
Yeah, well, they probably can't play all three of them.
Yeah, unless McKercher pushes up to a wing, which
he might.
Is a chance. I think their growth has to come out of the 20 to 24-year-olds. But the biggest question for me is where do they find an A grader?
Just became part of the vernacular, Scotty,
Yes.
by the way.
Because last year I compared this list build to Brisbane. They had the similar first-round picks for a 2, 3 or 4 year period. But then Brisbane go and win a flag by getting Neil, Dunkley, Charlie Cameron, Joe Danaher, who become premiership players. North Melbourne's recent additions from other clubs have been Zach Fisher, Dill Stevens, Darcy Tucker, Aiden Core, Griffin Logue, Jaden Stevenson. Like, we're talking poles apart in terms of quality out of those guys. Where is North's A and B plus additions going to come from in terms of the guys?
As in guys they poach from other clubs?
Yeah. Because that's been... They tell me the last time North went and landed a good 22 to 28-year-old from another club in their prime. They go and get 3 All-Australians in Darling, Parker and Daniel, but they're past... Maybe Daniel's got a bit left, but...
Yeah, Daniel might actually...
Most of them are past their prime.
Yep. Well, Darling and Parker, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question. And then obviously the big watch is LDU.
Yeah. Just on the key position players, they've drafted Will Dawson and Taylor Goad as project key defenders in time. Early-ish picks, both of those guys. So you'd hope that one of them can come on. And then we mentioned about Darling being the stopgap next to Larkey. They went and traded up last year, which was a massive selection in that draft. For Matt Whitlock, they gave up their future first-rounder as part of that transaction. So if both Richmond and North finish bottom 6 this year coming, it'll be essentially a pick 1 to 6 in exchange for pick 27 and pick early 20s.
Yep.
Like it's a big transaction, and there's going to be a bit of weight on that young kid's shoulders.
Just back on LDU, have you got an initial early thought.
I don't think he signs before round 8.
Problems. Problems for North.
What do you sit on it?
No, I'm with you, but I just think, if we get to the midway point of the year and they're 2-9 and LDU hasn't signed,
Yeah.
the whole it'll just be, cameras at Arden Street every single week.
Mm-hmm.
The offers coming from other clubs, people trying to get grabs of Paul and Robbie.
Yeah.
It'll just be intense.
Do you think he stays?
If I had to guess, I'd say he would. He would stay.
I'm on that side of things.
But I think things can change very quickly depending on how the season is panning out.
It's
like if they're 2-9 and Clarko has another boil over and loses his cool at something and the conversation starts turning towards, is the Clarkson plan working and all that sort of stuff and it looks like a sinking ship, then I think, it would be, I'm not going to speak from behalf of them, but it would be incumbent on his management to start saying, well,
yeah,
you get one shot at this career, mate. What are we going to do? We can't afford you to waste away here if they're going to start again with another coach. But if they're, who knows? Who's to say they're not 5-6 or 6-5, and 3 of these kids look like they're going to be superstars, and they come on, and Combin's dominating at centre half back, and LDU's having a good year, and it's like, well, mate, we've got 7 years on the table at 1.4. Why wouldn't you sign it? So that's why, things can change. I'm not trying to sit on the fence here because I'm not a fence sitter, but things can change so quickly. So I think from a trade perspective, North and when we're about to get to West Coast are the 2 clubs where things can change really, really quickly depending on results.
I like North's midfield. We mentioned this last week. I think
don't.
Yeah, see, I think they've got enough growth there. And if Wardlaw can get his body right, which is a big if.
Yeah, but you just did another hammy. So.
And that's going to be a massive blow for them because he's the one that can be the game changer in that midfield.
On that, Mitchell, it's going to bring us to our first Just Quickly, brought to you by 7-Eleven's Food on the Go lunchtime offers. And I think we've got Brad.
Hey, boys. Brad here. Just quickly, are we actually believing the hype around North Melbourne this year? There's a lot of talk around them, smashing the 5.5 wins that's been set. And, the additions of Darling and Parker are contributing to that. But I look at their list in general, and sure, Harry Sheasel is a gun, but there's not a lot of other talent there. I don't see them smashing that 5.5 win total. If anything, I see them probably landing bang on 5. Sure, they might sneak a 6, but is it all just hype at this point? Or is it legitimate? Because from where I'm sitting, I can't see it.
It's a very, very good question.
I think Brad and I sing from the same hymn book. If people still sung, from hymn books. When was the last time you held a hymn book?
A while ago. For me, it's like time because these guys have all been in the system now for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yep.
So at some point, it's going to turn.
No, but this is the thing, though, Mitchell. It doesn't have to turn.
No, that's what I mean.
We're not entitled. The clubs aren't entitled to anything.
No, they're not.
Just because they get the high picks doesn't mean it works.
But I could go to Melbourne when they had Brayshaw, Oliver, Petrarca. They'd all been in the system when they won the flag and started to contend. They'd all been in the system for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, but
so at some point
they've bottomed out so many times.
They did, but North have done that.
Yeah, they have.
So at some point it's going to turn. But I'm with Brad. It's just you're not given the key. It'll just happen. And
the top 10 of their best and fairest from last year does not make for great rating.
Go on.
Davies, Uniacke, Sherry, Sheasel, Curtis, Powell, Zerha, Combin, Core, McDonald, Archer.
Yeah.
Like
the top 3 are good players.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of Brayshaws and Olivers coming through there.
No, but that's what I hope Sheasel and McKercher and Dersma can be. Wardlaw.
I mean, Sheasel for me looks like a potential superstar, but he's a kid. It's only been 2 years. Wardlaw, I'm really worried about his body.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I'm in the minority here, for me the jury's still out of McKercher as to what kind of player he's going to end up being.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not. He may be an absolute superstar, right?
Yep.
But he doesn't look to be Cripps. He doesn't look to be Oliver. He doesn't look to be Petrarca.
Oh, that's fair.
I mean, he could end up being.
For me, he's Merritt, Zach Merritt.
I mean-
That's his scope, his ceiling.
Merritt's a. How many best and fairest he won now? 5, 6?
Yeah, but McKercher is 20. 19.
No, I know, but like he doesn't. I don't see Merritt in McKercher.
Okay. Let's bookmark that for tradie season 8.
And so that's why I'm with Brad at the moment. I think there's a bit too much hype, and I want to see results.
Just finally on LDU for me, he's played more than 100 games and won 21 matches. So it's 1 in 5 strike rate, or just under, for LDU.
That's hard going.
It's the same conversation last year as Cam Zurhaar. He came out and actually said that I want to see success. LDU's a different media performer. He's probably not going to say that.
Yep.
But they're going to need a win early to convince him that this is the place to be. The only issue in the comparison with Zurhaar and LDU is I don't think Zurhaar had the serious offers and considerations from other clubs that LDU is going to have.
Yep.
So it is a big decision for Luke.
Who's the number one? Who's the club at the top of the queue, do you reckon?
St Kilda have the money.
Yep.
And the issue with Luke Davies-Uniacke is he's a restricted free agent this year. So any offer that North can match, they will. So you're going to have to, if you're St Kilda and you want to keep your first round picks and not have to end up in a trade scenario like the Jeremy Cameron one, you have to blow North Melbourne out of the water so he walks to you for nothing. Otherwise, let's say North are offering 1.2 and St Kilda come with 1.3, 1.4. North will just match that and force a trade. And the club chasing him loses that, like we say, you don't want to have to give up draft picks to trade for these free agents. You want to bring them in the door for nothing. And the lure of going after a free agent is diminished when you're forced to trade for them.
Okay, prediction?
Yeah, for me, the LDU talks drag on a bit longer into round 8 onwards.
And prediction for how they're going to go, you think?
6 or 7 wins.
Okay. I think they'll finish bottom 2.
Bottom 2?
Yep.
Okay.